Chris Chinnock here for Display Central at ITSEC 2013 in the MetaVR booth with Carl Meisner, who's a software engineer, who has taken the time to kind of explain how these virtual models are built, because I didn't know, so he was kind enough to explain it to me. And it's a multi-step process, as you might imagine. And first of all, let's talk about the positioning of MetaVR versus some of the other companies. One of the things you explained to me was you like to think of the strength. One of the strengths of your company is the ability to go from the 10,000-foot level to the 1-foot level. So to zoom way up for airplanes that are flying over an area, to zoom to middle level for helicopters, and to be on the ground for people who are obviously on the ground. So here you are at whatever 10,000 feet. You can zoom right in to literally see the hubcaps of vehicles if that's important and necessary, which he's actually demonstrating right now. So in terms of how you build up these models, there's I wrote down kind of a 7-step process. I'm trying to simplify it a little bit here. But it basically starts from their perspective with gathering commercially available satellite data. So this data has is basically spatial data. So it gives you a 3D terrain map of the area that you're trying to model. And in this case, they're modeling a city called Kismayo. I think it's in Ethiopia, isn't it? Somalia. In Somalia, yeah. And so they start with this basically this wireframe model that comes off of the satellite and has some texture to it, but you're going to have to add a whole lot of additional texture and details to it. So that's kind of the first step. The second step is to take this and then put it into their format so they can start using their tool, which is called
VRSG from MetaVR.
Thank you. After that, they do a process, basically a cleanup process. So a lot of this imagery is acquired at different times of day, at different seasons. Some of it may be acquired at different times of day and seasons. So you have to kind of normalize this data in the database by taking out those seasonal variations, by taking out the time of day variations. Remember, the sun creates shadows, so you want to be able to add the time of day or the season as an input to this generation, so you've got to take that out to begin with. So you can see what Carl's doing here. He's actually changing the time of day right now, or the angle of the sun, and it's how it changes the shadows. You can't do that if you just have static imagery, so you have to normalize that, or clean it up as you will. Now they're using satellite, commercial satellite data. Other customers will have access to confidential databases that might be higher resolution or in restricted areas. They can use MetaVR tools to actually do this same kind of cleanup process, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So after that, you want to do basically some linearization of some of the features that are in there. So for example, you want to add in power lines or railroad tracks or roads. In the basic model, these are just wireframes, so you have to add some texture to them. So you can kind of draw these in, but this is now a very manual intensive process. This is done by artists who are clicking and pointing and adding textures and styles to all these features. So the fidelity of the render is now going to be very dependent on your time and budget to add the fidelity to each of these scenes and each of these models.
That's true.
Correct. Okay, good. Next step, adding cultural features. Okay, so cultural features, according to Carl, are things like buildings, and this can kind of come in as kind of generic kind of features. So generic buildings might be office buildings or warehouses or oil tanks or something of the sort. Cultural specific things might be a specific mosque or a monument or an arch. In those cases, you may need photos or additional data that can be exactly, the Hotel Hormumbo.
That's a real building.
That's a real building that has to be rendered correctly, because these could be landmarks that warfighters are going to be referencing. So you want these, yes, you want these to be accurate, and that requires, again, a different another level of additional work, artist time, maybe on the ground picture taking, that kind of stuff. After that, you add what he calls the pattern of life. So there are various cultural figures, people that you can add to this, trucks, vehicles, other features that are modeled and that have animated aspects to them. People walk, they have certain attributes, they will go through scripted motions, and then you basically start with a kind of a base model, and you can add certain features and attributes to each of these base models, and you build up whole populations. These models can then be scripted to do certain tasks and features. Okay? So it becomes a library of things that you can now use to build certain scenarios. Yes. Oh, I'm getting this right.
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay. And that's kind of that's pretty much the level that you stop at this point, correct?
Then we integrate with a number of partners who provide simulation and physics. For example, a flight dynamics of an airplane. And then the other kind of integration we'll do is with artificial intelligence. They're driving characters, interaction, attack, flee. So we bring together a networked exercise, multiple different viewpoints over a database, and that will show, trainees and operators a realistic view to the best of our ability, approximating what they're going to experience in the field.
Right. And we talked about the difference between what you do and what, for example, Havoc does, and they have more of a focus on the physics of a situation and focus more on small kinds of environments, so you can add a different level of fidelity. You like to have that, like I said, the foot to 10,000 foot view, but as you just said, you can integrate this with third-party things to add that physics layer as necessary.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that, in more than a nutshell, is kind of how a very simplified version of how you build up these virtual models. Carl, thank you very much for your help. That was excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. Chris Chinnock for Display Central.